It is 1 before the top of the hour, and I look forward to getting into this with you. It is me today. I'm in our remote location, Moving Arts office in town, and man, woke up this morning and it is turning into fall here in Southwest Colorado. Very different than living in San Diego when it's seemingly always summer. So this is been a nice brisk morning. Our kids taking the school bus for the first time, which is exciting. And yeah, I'm excited to get into this topic with you because it's very important. So let me just do a couple checks on, are we live or not? Yep, we are. Good to go. And if you have any questions or comments about burnout or your experience with it, feel free to put that in the chat. So my colleague, Dr. Marissa, will be in the chat answering any questions she can while I'm giving a short interactive presentation. And I will also check the chat at the very end. So for those of you coming on, my name is Dr. Teresa Larson, and I'm the founder of Enrich. And today we are talking about burnout and how to go from burnout to balance. Now let's be honest, balance, there's no such thing as complete balance. There's more of a wave, we go through waves. Yet, there is a way to eliminate burnout in the workplace and in your life, and there are some key things I'm going to share with you today on how to do that. I have actually personally experienced burnout in my life, and it's actually a big topic right now in the workplace. And it's been a big topic for a while. The pandemic did not help with burnout, especially working in a hybrid environment, and if you're raising a family and working from home, it can escalate that. So we'll get started in about a minute. If you want to ask a question, introduce yourself in the chat, would love to hear from you. And give me a second here. I hope you all are having a wonderful day so far. Let's see. It's always funny to see myself going. Okay. All right. Good to go. 1 minute. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's get this party started. I'm going to start off with a brief personal story of how burnout has impacted me in my life. All right, so I am a mother of 2 little boys. I run Movement RX with my husband, and we have a team of about 10 people. And we used to run PT clinics in San Diego, one physical location, then we had pop-up locations in different CrossFit gyms around San Diego. Anyway, I found myself, this was in 2016, where I was working on, I'd actually just published my book and was pregnant with my first son. And I was in my therapist's office, and this wasn't any normal therapist. He was a biofeedback, mindfulness meditation, brain researcher. And I really liked the concept of working with a biofeedback therapist, let alone a mindfulness meditation coach, which I thought was kind of woo-woo at the time, but because he was a brain researcher, I was like, okay, he's grounded in science. Obviously, meditation, mindfulness is very much grounded in science. I didn't know that at the time. And so I'm sitting in his office, and he's literally been teaching me skills on how to relax and how to help myself work through hard times. If that was the thing, I would only see him during times when it was hard, like when stress was high, when things weren't going well. And so whenever things were going well, I'd stop seeing him. So I was not consistent on seeking help or making sure I was able to maintain my mental health. And so I found myself in his office. I was about 21 weeks pregnant. I had just found out at my 20-week ultrasound that my first son had a missing key brain structure. And it was a piece of his brain that would connect the left and right hemispheres. And I was told right immediately when we got this news, I was told by the perinatologist that we have a couple choices. We can either terminate or keep the child. And this was, we had 2 weeks to decide this. And mind you, I went into this ultrasound thinking, what could go wrong? Like, I'm gonna crush this. Like, I'm healthy, I'm physically healthy. What could go wrong? Well, that was a hard hit, very hard hit for my husband and I. At the same time, right, we were running our PT business. We were running a cash pay practice out of San Diego. It was doing well. We were growing locations. We had a team. Yet I wasn't happy with the direction we were going. And I didn't like showing up to work and who we were working with and where we were working. Yet I wasn't voicing this. And so while, PT, physical therapist, right, it's normal to work in a clinic or maybe eventually run your own clinic. I decided to run my own clinic right after PT school because I didn't want to work for anyone. However, running my own PT clinic wasn't for me either, and I found that out. Yet we were growing in a direction of increasing more locations, more people, and even the people on my staff, right? I didn't feel comfortable with where we were going and who we were working with. And so I found myself stressed out all the time. And here I was in my therapist's office, emotionally and physically drained, and also having received this news about my son, who I didn't know was my son until we had this ultrasound. We found out his gender, which we actually wanted to wait. But because of the circumstances we did find out. So the therapist, though, despite all of this stuff going on in business and my personal life, in these seemingly catastrophes, he was like, well, Teresa, tell me how you're sleeping. Are you meditating consistently? How are you eating? Who are you hanging out with? Right? How are you moving? Before diving into, past history or growing up or whatever, it was more on the physical and emotional practices. Am I consistent? And no, I wasn't consistent. And then he said something to me, and he actually ended up becoming an advisor in my company, and still is, actually. He was like, the next thing he said to me actually changed the course of how I chose to run my business with my husband. And he said, Teresa, you are the principal in your life. If you don't work, your life, your business isn't going to work. You can develop a life, right? You can develop a life that you need, and your business can be with it. But your business shouldn't be running your life. And so, we didn't use the terms burnout or anything like that because that's a very Western medicine focused term. But that was what I was experiencing. But what he asked me was he was asking me how I was taking care of myself, which are the causes. If you don't take care of yourself, when you don't perform self-care, or you're not paying attention to the right things, it can lead to burnout. It's the trajectory, right? You think of the arrow. If you like to bow hunt, shoot a bow and arrow, or shoot, right? The target, think of the target, that's the symptom, the burnout. But look at the trajectory where that arrow goes. It's come from. What's been the path? How long has it taken to get there? And when I looked at the trajectory, I was like, I fall off self-care all the time because whenever I feel like it, I stop. I stopped taking the meditation when I feel good versus staying consistent, right? And the trajectory was it took a while, but I also am an entrepreneur, so I was learning. There's a lot of growth and ups and downs that happen with running a business and just in general in life. So it was eye-opening for me to take on this concept of I am the principal. If I can choose the direction my company and my life goes. And while I've been told it in different ways throughout my life, that was a turning point for me. I can't just do self-care when I feel like it, when it's nice to have. Because eventually I'm going to lose my health and then jump back on. I'm going to lose my health and jump back on versus staying on it, losing my health a little bit or struggling, but staying the course, doing the system, right? Following the system. It's like in business, you follow the systems. You do assessments, find out where you're at, and that helps you in your business. You follow the system and create systems. It's the same thing with self-care. So I share that with you because I have experienced burnout in my life, running the business. And now, thankfully, I know what the symptoms are, and I know the trajectory. And I know that staying consistent with self-care can keep you ahead of the symptoms and eventually eliminate them. Now, let's get into the nuts and bolts of in the workplace, because burnout is a big thing that happens in the workplace, right, as a culture, with individuals, but also as a company culture. And so the problem that we solve, as with my company, so the problem that we solve for organizations, right, isn't specifically burnout. But there are, think of all the symptoms you may experience that can lead to loss of people, loss of productivity, things like that. Burnout is a big one. But our company in general, we focus on helping small business leaders grappling with client loss, employee retention challenges, and business scalability due to the fact that the leaders are challenged with their own mental and physical well-being that's impacting their employees' well-being. So think about that for a second. The things I'm going to talk about here are going to help your company, but it starts with the leadership. All too often, leadership training is focused on, conflict resolution and productivity and P&L and how people are getting along. Well, let's look at under the surface of that, the root cause of some of these bigger issues that we tend to focus so much energy on. Like, let's look at the root cause of these. And today we're going to be focusing on burnout. But the solution lies in the leadership. And I'm going to share why in a little bit. So our job as an organization with my team and I, we focus on helping leaders dial in their well-being so they can show up as more effective and healthy human beings first, and then leaders of their organization. We care about the human beings first. So let's get into burnout itself. What is burnout? Okay, so burnout is an erosion of energy, efficacy, and emotions that is often characterized as exhaustion, reduced efficacy, and cynicism. Do any of these ring a bell for you? Or are any of these you're experiencing right now in your life? So let's look at reduced efficacy. There's the concepts of presenteeism and absenteeism, right? Maybe there's people in your organization who are overwhelmed by everything that comes in. They show up tired, they look tired, right? They are there but not there, they're always on their phone, or they actually call in sick a lot. Let's look at negativity and cynicism, right? People that are sarcastic with you, bosses that are sarcastic, or people that are sarcastic or irritable, right? More irritable. They see everything as the glass is half empty. Maybe they did see the glass is half full at one point, but all of a sudden they're seeing the glass is half empty. If these are kind of look at the trajectory of how long this has been. When did it start? Maybe something's going on at home, or maybe something's going on at work that's affecting people at home, right? But how is the negativity and cynicism in your workplace? Now, let's look at myths of burnout. This is also important to know. Myth number 1 is that burnout is a sign of weakness. Myth number 2 is that maybe you should just take a bubble bath and do yoga to feel better. Now, that's interesting because I've worked with HR managers, right, there's so much to do in the HR realm that sometimes throwing yoga or some fun activity can be a solution to solving some of the mental health or physical health issues they're seeing. But it's more systemic than that, right? It's consistent activity in the self-care realm. And so let's look at burnout as a sign of weakness. So burnout, like feeling exhausted and extra irritable, do you think that's a sign of weakness? Most likely, right, something's going on at work with relationship with someone. Maybe there's some bullying. Maybe it's the relationship with the boss or something going on at home that's causing that. right? So just looking at someone as lazy or not doing their job, as a leader, if you're listening to this, dig into that. Find out why something's going on. When I was a young Marine officer, I had a young overweight Marine who was lazy on the job site. But I remember, and even at 22 years old, I was able to look at him and say, sit him down and ask him, like, what's going on? Like, why are you acting this way? Is there something going on that I don't know about? And sure enough, like, he didn't feel welcome in our platoon. Like, he didn't feel like he was being heard. And he was struggling at home too. And so I made, as a leader, more of an effort to connect with him and help him have a voice in our platoon. Felt that same thing in Movement RX, when running Movement RX in the early days of running a clinic, right? Had people who appeared lazy, yet they didn't know how to build up a clientele. They didn't know how to cultivate a patient load. If that was the way our business was run, you kind of put yourself out there and grow a patient load yourself. We help that with our network, but it's really up to the person. We had a nice profit share that would go into when PTs wanted to work with us. Yet the skill set of learning how to cultivate a PT base was hard for some of the PTs that worked for us. And that, on the surface, they looked lazy, like they were just focusing on their phone, yet actually they didn't know how to cultivate a patient base and nurture a clientele. So that was something I had to dig into. But as a leader, you got to do that. The second myth of, just go do some yoga or bubble bath to fix it, it's not a quick fix, right? We got to look at the trajectory of how this occurred. Like, what happened? Like, is there something going on at home? And when you actually sit down with the human beings in front of you that are working for you, you're seeing these signs and symptoms of burnout, and you dig into it, you're going to find there is something going on typically, or there is something that they don't feel like they have a voice, or they don't feel like they have a voice at home or at work, right? Because you can't separate your personal and professional life very well. I mean, if you try, like, you can't. I mean, if you think that you can't separate them, you're wrong. Right? There is no way to separate them. Your personal life will affect your professional life. Your professional life will affect your personal life. It's just going to. There is ways to transition and help that, and not having burnout definitely helps that. But what's going on at home, people are going to carry that to the workplace and vice versa. So here's the thing. Now I want to get into 6 factors of burnout. So these factors actually can help also create growth too. So if you understand, you look at these 6 factors, they can also help with how you help handle it in the workplace, all right? And so the cause can also be the path of healing. It's right. It's like, think of low back pain as a symptom too. Maybe you don't squat very well, you bend over with a rounded back, right? You sit a lot. Well, those causes, right, the sitting too much, bending with a rounded back, right, that can lead to low back pain. Can also be the path forward to healing, sitting less, right? Moving with a more neutral spine, squatting more effectively can help eliminate back pain, all right? So the causes can also be the path to healing. So the 6 factors of burnout is, I think of workload. What is the workload? Are people being asked to do a lot? Are you checking in with the workload that you're giving your people and giving them a time frame where they need to be on point a lot more than they're used to? Like, I know in the accounting world, right, there are different parts of the year that are pretty busy, but then there are parts of the year that aren't. Are you communicating that with your employees, right? How is the workload? Is it manageable? And know that everybody's a little bit different with how they manage their workload. That's a key factor in not only the cause of burnout, but also how you fix it. And then value alignment. Do you ask your employees about their values, right? Are they aligned with yours? And, you know, if there is a difference, like, where is that gap? Then look at control. So people, just like children, we like to have some control. and a say? Are you giving your employees, managers, a say in how the company is run and how things can be fixed? Are you giving them a voice, right, in how their day is run and the things that are happening in the company? Do they feel like they have a voice? That's important. Do they have a choice in the matter? The other one is fairness, respect, and openness. Is there a way that people can share about what's coming up for them? Or a place, do your employees feel respected? Do you feel respected? Do you feel like there's fairness? Do your employees feel like there's fairness? There needs to be communication around this. It can't all be about productivity. If you have a company, nurturing that employee base is like a family. And if you have a big company, you're going to have to rely on other leaders to help you with this, managers, right, the executive staff. But the point is you have to create a space where people can share. And during the week, right, is there times when they can check in with their manager? Is their manager receptive? Are there specific times where there's a personal connection that's made? And is there a mutual respect, openness, and fairness? And that are even questions you can have your managers ask and have your employees ask, right? Have your managers and leaders ask your employees, and vice versa. And then look at reward and recognition, right? Reward and recognition can be buffers to burnout. Like, are you giving financial or physical rewards for doing good jobs, or giving people some time off if they need it, if they're grieving, right? I remember my first job out of PT school, I lasted 6 months, which is why I started my business right away. But I remember I was getting married, and I told my boss that I wanted to take 2 weeks, I think it was 10 days actually, to go on a honeymoon. And he gave me a hard time about that. Like, I don't know if we can handle your caseload for you. Like, that's a long time. I put in my 2 weeks notice right then and there. So I was like, this is the last straw. Like, I'm getting married. This is a big part of my life. Maybe I was grieving, maybe I was dealing with a loss, right, of someone, but I deserve the right to go and spend some time getting married, going on a honeymoon, or grieving. Sometimes people need a little bit more time than maybe what you're able to allow, but like, listen to them. Listen to what they need and see if you can meet them where they're at. And then let's look at community. Just particularly, how is the environment? Like, who are your managers connecting with? How are they connecting with each other? How are you connecting with your staff? Right? How you show up as a leader does trickle down significantly. What are people focusing on when they're at lunch? Are they on their phones scrolling through social media, or are they actually connecting with each other? Are they playing games, basketball at lunch? Like, what is happening in your company culture? And then in those connection times during the week, ask them, if they're open to it, ask people what they're doing at home that fills their cup, right? How is their home life coming along, if they're open to share? What people pay attention to and who they hang out with inside of work and outside of work will impact them significantly. And so those 6 pieces, 6 aspects of what can cause burnout, which is workforce, workload, values, alignment, control, fairness, respect, openness, reward, recognition, community, are also the paths to growth. So here's some sobering statistics, but also something to think about. And I mentioned this at the beginning. We work with leaders because we know that the leadership, if you can dial in the well-being of the leadership, it will trickle down into the organization. How a leader shows up, how they perform self-care and show up for their people does set an example for other people. It's just like you as a parent in your family. You are the example. The best thing you can do, you want to teach your children something, is be the example of what you want them to be. Same thing with an organization. We've done some research on this in terms of productivity and how tying in well-being to revenue, right? And there is a tie. So we found out with some of the research we've done that 87% of executives out there know that their well-being is an important part of growth. Yet only 30% have a solution to it. That means there's a gap there, right? And then there's another survey that came out by Work Health Institute, where they surveyed 3,400 individuals. And of those 34 individuals, 70% said that their manager impacts their mental health just as much or on par with their significant other. So welcome to the bedroom, welcome to the dinner table, right? Your employees, your teammates, your colleagues. Actually, I was talking about a company the other day that calls their employees, 6,000 of them, colleagues, because they want them to feel a part of their community. They want them to feel heard, and they're doing a good job with it, right? You better believe that your employees are talking about your leadership, good, bad, or otherwise. And so that is where we focus our attention as an organization. I get to work with some pretty amazing people in my organization, and we go into companies and teach how to be awake and aware, optimize and operational, reset and recharge, so they can show up as the best version of themselves as human beings first to help run a company. So with that, if there is any questions or comments, I know Dr. Marissa is in the chat for me, but I want you to know that if you are a business owner out there, a small business owner, a veteran small business owner, a leader out there, and you want to know how to dial in your well-being, starting with the leadership, book a call with me. I've got a QR code in the corner, the left-hand corner for me. Feel free to reach out. Dr. Marissa can also put the link to connect with me in the chat, but I want to hear from you. And even if I don't have a solution for you, I'm pretty resourceful in finding one for you. So with that, I'm going to look at the chat and see, hold on here, if there's any comments I should look at. So we did talk about what burnout was. We talked about the myths of burnout and the factors that are also the solution, causes that are also the solution to burnout, and why leadership is essential to helping eliminate burnout in the workplace. So let's see here. All right, it's been great spending this last half hour with you all. Let's see. All right, she's in it. Okay, thanks, Dr. Marissa. All right, so yeah, so colleagues, right? So Tara mentioned colleagues. So I was talking to about a company called Convergent, right? And they've done really well in kind of creating security systems for organizations. And a very good friend of mine has been sharing with me about them, and they call their employees colleagues. I know some companies call them teammates. That's awesome. Employees is fine, but kind of dull. It's like teammates, colleagues, those are great terms. Let's see. So one of the things, Chris O'Brien too. So one of the things that inspired me about diving into this concept of burnout, but also other symptoms that we see in the workplace, right? Like if you think of some of the major symptoms, there could be burnout, there can be low back pain, there can be the retention, like the lack of retention or the great resignation, there could be depression, anxiety, mental health stuff that comes up. I was just talking to a local company here in Southwest Colorado who, you know, hires very young people because it's a coffee company, right? So 18 to 22-year-olds, and the things that 18 to 22-year-olds are dealing with this in this day and age, like there's a lot that's coming up emotionally for them. And so how do you handle that as a leader? So there's, but what inspired me to dive into this was the fact that the symptoms that we see, if you think of like a tree and then the roots of a tree, right? Our society will focus on those symptoms, where the pain exactly is, and those symptoms, and then the burnout and the problem with burnout, and who is causing it, and want to point fingers. If you look underneath the surface of the roots, right, which aren't a common topic, which is usually what companies will throw, they think EAP programs, employee assistance programs, are the answer, which less than 5% of people use, or some fun activity that they do once a year, or company picnic. Those are all great, but we need consistency. People have a hard time with consistency, but if you look at the root cause, how are people training their mind? So when they show up, they're emotionally intelligent to handle the struggle that they're under, that they're going to be up against in the workplace. How are they sleeping? Right? Are they doing mindfulness meditation to train their mind? What are they eating? Are they eating a bunch of junk food at lunch where they just feel like they're going to go into, fall asleep right after lunch? Which is pretty normal anyway, but if you're eating a bunch of inflammatory foods and high sugary foods, that's going to cause you to not be so focused. If you're dealing with pain, right, and you're not moving enough during the day, like the unplanned movement is actually way more important than just the planned movement, right? If you're not getting enough movement during the day, it's going to affect your focus. Just moving for 20 minutes increases your productivity significantly and creativity by 60%, and your ability to learn. Going outside after lunchtime and looking up at the sun will help wake you up, right? And then who are you paying attention to? Those are all things I'm really passionate about. If you dial those in as a leader, right, when you show up and there's a lot going on, it's much easier to navigate the conflict, the stuff going on financially, all the things in your workplace when you are cared for by yourself. When you take care of yourself, you are much easier to handle the conflict that you're up against. Not to say it's easy, but you're going to show up as a better person, calmer person, a less reactive, more responsive person than if you didn't. But it's got to start with you, because guess what? Your employees are looking at you. And that's why I'm passionate about it. So with that, I'd love to hear from you. And let's see, is there anything else people want to say? Good morning, everyone. Hello, General Farrader. Nice to see you on here. I look forward to seeing you soon. All right. And all right, well, I'm going to sign off. This is 30 minutes. So stay tuned. I'm going to reshare this on Saturday. We're going to have a blog and a newsletter that comes out about this. And I would love to hear from you, even if you watch this later on and have questions or comments. I'll be sure to go in and check. But I hope you all have a wonderful day. Your health matters. Don't wait until you lose it to do something about it.